this just happen? Is this where I am with my beautiful AAA title that I'm playing? And it's a little frustrating.
A little bit of that is we have to recall that even when The Witcher 3 released, it was a mess. CD Projekt prides themselves on making things run on a humble toaster.
Yes.
It will run on a humble toaster. Will it be good on the humble toaster? Will it work as intended on the humble toster?
I mean, the Xbox
but it'll
One,
run.
The PS4 are kind of the shiny examples of that. This should have only released on the next gen hardware for consoles, at least.
To some degree, because that's a primary concern of that company, from a design standpoint. It is a design challenge of how low can we make this thing run?
And you know what, to all the listeners out there, Cyberpunk might not be loaded with information, but this podcast sure as shit will be. So welcome to the show, everyone. We are so excited to be here on Kinda Ugly Sweater Thursday, the week before Christmas. It's the holiday season, and we're excited to be joined here by one of our favorite people in the industry. His name is Logan McLaughlin. We are just so thankful to have him join us on the show over here on my left or right. I don't know which way he is. I can never remember. Welcome to Theorycrafting. This is episode number 10, the show where we talk about the games industry, where we're going, and try to come up with theories about why and banter a little bit about the news of the day. So my name's Mitch, and joined here by my co-host, as always, Mr. Kyle, aka Real Gizmo.
There's so much. I know Mitch and I have spent hours and hours dissecting the shows that I've built with DreamHack, but as an attendee that is seeing this stuff for the first time, potentially, is seeing a lot of this kind of over sensory exposure and being able to regurgitate that's got to be kind of convoluted at the end of the day. So I guess that makes sense to be able to follow someone around essentially and see what they go to, see what they experience, and then maybe even pair that with an interview to kind of see what stands out to them based off of what you saw they experienced. That would be fascinating to look at that kind of information.
Well, interview attendees are actually some of the easier ones to kind of do that sort of track on, especially ones that interview day one. Is that it's okay, I recognize you. We had a 15, 20-minute conversation. So now I'm just going to make a mental note when I see you for the rest of the weekend. What are you doing? Did you buy merch? That's another one to kind of keep in mind of okay, day one, I saw you in normal clothes. Day two, you're decked out in stuff that you clearly got from the event. That's a demonstration. That's a demonstration of a behavior, right? Is that
it's definitely me.
You're looking at what people do, and from an anthropologist perspective, there's a lot of cultural significance to that, because there's this kind of ritualization of garb that people wear to events. Whether it's pins on your lanyard, lanyards from previous events, merch from previous events, all of it is meant to signal that you kind of know what you're doing.
Some posturing, a little bit of that flex in person. I've got so many lanyards.
I mean, why do you think I have all my entire lanyard collection in frame right by my shoulder?
Case in point.
I'm posturing.
Well, it's also a thing where it's if you're wearing DreamHack, great example. If you're wearing the DreamHack founder's jacket, you're one of the only people who has that jacket. If you're wearing, the exclusive piece of merch from a 2016 event and you're at the 2020 event, it's a signal to everyone around you who's in the know that you are also in the know. It's not abnormal, or it's not more common or less common in gaming than it is anywhere else. I just think it manifests different because there are multiple different ways to do it in a gaming sense. You can have merch from different events that then interplays into the same thing. I can wear my Dota 2 International Windbreaker to an event to be I went to TI. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm about. And I can wear that to a PAX, a DreamHack, whatever, and it kind of marks me on an identifying basis to people.
It says you cheer at graphs.
Yes, it says I enjoy statistics. And I watch the biggest esport that nobody pays attention to because it's mostly crowdfunded. And doesn't rely on sheer massive amounts of corporate money.
That sounds about right. The one pure esport out there, I guess is the right way to say that, right? No influence from anyone else. They barely allow team logos in there.
Yep.
It says TI or it says nothing is kind of the approach that they take with that.
Well, I guess when you're on, that level of, got that Volvo money flowing in there, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's part of the allure of TI, right? It's TI.
You get to make the rules.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, that as I got into sort of the esports world, and as I saw more of the corporate side of the esports world, right? Because we're at this interesting crossroads. I have, in a tongue-in-cheek way, sometimes called it corporate imperialism, or corporate colonialism, or corporatization. The idea that you've got basically like, oh, hey, video games are profitable and the millennials like them. We at Legacy Media Company would like to buy into this new gold mine, and we would love to know the natives. And I think for me, it's the anthropologist's burden. Not burden, but it's like the curse of anthropology, right? Is that in the golden age of imperialism and in the early 1900s, when anthropology was a discipline was founded, you had people that were going in trying to understand, the local populations of places that were primarily imperial controlled by whomever, with the whole idea being like it's a fascinating thing to learn about. And now we're just kind of in the same space, except for people want to know, why do people like car soccer? This in no way reflects any work I've ever done. We at the BMW Corporation would love to know how people interact with car soccer. Can you tell us about the car soccer people? We want to know of their religion and customs.
He's way over there, like on the far side of the screen. If you're looking at your far right, he's over there. If you want to study him.
Well, that's the ask. Is it's this? You package it in the same box of like, we want to understand the local population so that we may better rule over them and exploit them.
All I can see is Mitch hunched over that Rocket League thing behind him, cutting it out behind this. Like, as we're tearing down at a DreamHack show, because that's how that thing wound up behind him. But he's like this savage that will just consume someone cannibalistically.
With a screwdriver, by the way. All right, I used a screwdriver to cut that out of the set of DreamHack Atlanta. All right,
we have something for him to use to cut that out.
Yeah, no, there's no saw. There's no saws at a DreamHack event. Let me tell you, there's only freaking flathead screwdrivers. So Logan, so I love this analogy of like the corporate imperialist is pretty silly, and a lot of the work that we've done, Logan, together is around sponsorship and around esports in particular, and gaming events in particular, with this idea of like monetizing esports fans. So what's something that I guess you've kind of given us the perspective of like what the brands are coming in, kind of how they're operating, right? We just want to learn about the natives and know their religion and kind of throw money at them. Maybe what's something you've uncovered about like brand integrations and sponsorships in the esports space that maybe it's a little unexpected, or maybe something that brands aren't really thinking about, right? Like what's the, give me a little piece of a little nugget here that I don't know, I'm a brand, I want to spend a bunch of money, but I don't want to be patronizing. So like, how do I do it correctly?
How do I not get eaten by the cannibals?
Yeah, how do we not get eaten by the natives?
Well, that's the ever-present thing, and that's the thing I think I've uncovered most is the importance of small-scale communities to these sorts of interactions. And it's not like everyone wants to look at gaming as a homogenous space. We want to look at esports as a homogenous space. We want to be able to say, okay, we will throw X amount of dollars at whatever, or we'll throw it at the biggest thing. But that looks really disingenuous, and it puts kind of a stigma at the top, right? Because you've established that like you only care about the widest reaching thing, you're just trying to hit the lowest common denominator, you don't really understand the world that you're getting involved in. You are showing up with, hello fellow gamers, how may you do? I too am meme-tastic, and I will teach you about Fortnites. But what people aren't focusing on is like the day-to-day use case stuff. Because let's be honest, even though we all watch esports, we all, play games that are related to esports titles, our day-to-day interaction and lives and where we really communicate and connect online are in these sort of small niches that we've carved out for ourselves, whether it's, a Rocket League Discord server or an individual small streamer we kind of watch or hang out with. We know the big names. We put the big names on in the background when we're working and doing stuff. We don't interact in the chat of those. The chat is a screaming crowd. It's huge. It's massive. Nobody interacts there. But you can probably name a couple of communities that you have that aren't necessarily work related, that you exist in on a more social level, that are of a size that's more moderate and manageable for your socialization, even if that is kind of based on position in industry, related to industry people. Of like the side chat that you've got where, you know, we sometimes talk about work, but we don't talk about work. We're here to play Rocket League, or we're here to play Counter-Strike or whatever. And it's those communities that get overlooked from a sponsorship perspective, rightly so to some degree. But it's this idea that it's like if we throw money at the problem, we'll get people to be loyal. And there's lots of weird misconceptions around what that means. That's probably my biggest piece, especially as we come into and are further into an era of reliance on big data and metrics. There's an idea of quantifying everything, right? We've got to quantify the loyalty, we've got to quantify the turnaround, we've got to quantify the ROI on supporting this thing. But there's a lot that you can do as a show of good faith in a community that builds more of a long-lasting relationship with people if you engage with them as people and not as consumers or numbers. Because the temptation a lot of the time now is like reduce it to number, show me big number, show me how to make number bigger. And I think that's a paradigm that permeates even down into kind of gaming as a whole, right? You know, we've seen a rise in the past 5-ish years of min-maxing culture in everything. Right? You know, you go to a streamer and they're playing a game, and if they aren't playing it right, chat is putting them through the ringer for not playing it right because they're not optimized. They're not optimal. You know, it's like the idea that the bigger the number is for whatever, that we've quantified this worth in a way that's tangible. But a lot of what I end up studying is the intangible, and that's why people end up coming to me, is because they aren't able to answer those intangible questions.
I think this brings us to the end of our wonderful hour-long discussion about the gaming industry with you, Logan. I appreciate you so much for being on the show. This has been something that I hope we do again, because your insights are some of the most fascinating that I get to listen to ever. And without having shows to hang out at this year and have a good discussion with you, it's been great to catch up and understand more of where you think we're going and what the gaming industry holds for all of us to continue to move forward. But that's our show, everyone. This is episode 10 of Theorycrafting, so thank you for joining us on this crazy adventure where Logan, Mitch, and I have gone through gaming. Thank you to Blue Microphone, AverMedia, and ShotCall.gg for supporting the show. We appreciate you very much. If you haven't already, make sure you follow us here on the Twitch page. And if you like what we've been talking about, let us know in the comments. If not, let Mitch know. His handle is right there. Send it to Mitch Rass on Twitter, and he'll make sure to handle all of the complaints that you have one by one. He can't speak right now, so he can't say anything, so good luck. I love it. Thank you all. Have a wonderful holidays. This is the last show of the season for us, so we'll be back after the new year. So have a safe, happy holiday the way that 2020 allows you to, and we'll see you in 2021.
Goodbye.